Cost of living in the Philippines. Things have changed. I've been here 3 trips since 2015. Lived here about 9 years in Cebu City, Central Visayas, Philippines. And quite a few things have changed. I've been doing cost of living videos since 2016, good 8 years. And anyway, I'm going to get into some details about cost of living, and I'm going to offer up some additional information and hints about how to control your spending, stay in control of your spending. Understand, you need to keep track of it. And anyway, let's get into the details here. By the way, I'm using a video. Some time ago, I walked from Pacific Mall over in Mandaue back towards Cebu City, and I'm just going to leave that up while I talk about these costs. So first, housing. Most of you are going to rent, at least initially. Some are going to want to build something or buy something, but let's talk about rent. When I first came here, 2015, August, I found a place with, including condo dues, for about 13,000 pesos a month. And electric and water was up and above that. But the exchange rate wasn't nearly as good as it is today. It was like 48.5 when I came here. So 13,000. So first, let me back up. The experts say you should spend only 25 to 30% of your net income, your take-home income, on your housing, your rent, your mortgage payments, that type of thing. And so anyway, you're going to want to know that figure. Hopefully you know that figure, your hopefully guaranteed amount, and multiply. Find your 30%, your 25 or 30%. I suggest starting off, you start low if you're on a little bit of a tight budget. If you've got a huge budget, it doesn't quite matter as much. Anyway, that 13,000 at 50 pesos to the US, or 48 pesos to the US dollar, $268 a month. At the current 56 pesos, $30 less, more than 30, about $35 less now, just because of the exchange rate. And over the course of a year, that adds up. If you multiply that out to food and everything else, not taking account of inflation with food and other items. Now, if you're on the U.S. Social Security system, I think the average, not really the average, what they call the mean, half are below it, half are above it. But I'll use the term average. Pensioner in the U.S. now gets about $1,600 a month. Times 30% is $480 at 56 to the US dollar. If you're getting 1,800 a month times 30%, 540. So if you can stay within those limits, if you're in this average group, you're starting off good. You're going to have utilities, almost always electric, unless you're Airbnb all included. You're going to have electric bill and a water bill. Water bill's generally pretty low. 3, 4, 5, 600 pesos a month, which 600 pesos less, about $11. Let me back up just a little bit and get back to housing. You can find relatively inexpensive housing, definitely much cheaper than it would cost me anywhere I would want to live in the U.S. If you're going to move into one of these new high-rise condominiums with a higher price tag, or your landlord has bought when the prices were the highest, he's going to need more rent because of trying to get a return on investment. There are a lot of people, a lot of owners of condominiums, houses, subdivision houses, and such, who bought in pre-selling many years ago, long before the big increase, for instance. And it might be a little bit older unit, but they can accept, not always want to, but some of them are willing to accept a lower rent because they still get a decent return on investment because they bought in at a much lower cost. I know you're all waiting to find out how much does a girlfriend cost. Many years ago, I did a video with that title. Got a lot of comments, a lot of positive comments. But I had a couple people, more than a couple people, tell me I was insulted. They were insulted by the title and by the video. And I just kind of stated it. That's one of the costs that we all have to understand and have a control on. Anyway, I'll get to that, but first, I've got a number of other things on the list. Back to utilities. Your water shouldn't be that for your showers and washing. Generally, shouldn't be that much. You're going to want to buy purified water at the stores. I pay, I think, $35 per 5-gallon jug, and it lasts me, I don't know, 3 days, something like that. So you can figure that out. Depends on how much water you're going to use. Of course, for drinking, the purified water. And then your electric. There again, my electric has bounced. I've got 45 square meters, 43, I guess, plus the balcony. And May was a really hot month. I was home a lot. I ran the aircon much more than average, and my bill was 6,600 pesos for the month, or about 115 US dollars at 56 pesos to US dollar, although I think it even got up to 58 in that period of time. Since we got out of that hot month of May, there's been more clouds and a breeze. Oftentimes had my windows open during the day and just run my aircon maybe 3 hours at night to cool it all off, take the humidity out, and brought it down to even under 4,000, which would be about $71. So yeah, over $30 less in just because of the change of temperature. I had a friend who rented a small studio for several months, and he runs it 24/7. He runs his window aircon 24/7, and he was getting right around 7,000 a month pesos for his bill. I told him, you need to tell the owner he needs to clean the air conditioning unit or go and have it done yourself. And anyway, he eventually did. He was running the aircon and a fan, and he still was warm. And they finally came and cleaned it, and now he has it on a very low setting. He says it's too cold, even on the lowest setting, and big difference. So if your aircon isn't working properly, you need to get it cleaned or serviced, and that should lower your bill as well. There's some other factors about where you live. Up Valencia, above Dumaguete on Negros Island, I think they use thermo. From the steam of the earth, they get some electric, and it's relatively inexpensive over there. Although you're even up in the mountain there, so you need less electricity, less AC. Take some of your other islands, like Camotes Island, I think Bantayan Island. I think they operate on a diesel generator or several diesel generators, and their rates are higher. In my case, where I'm living here for 2.5 years, our condominium raised our rate from 13 pesos per kilowatt hour to 15, and then they raised it to 18 per kilowatt hour. So they're giving us a surcharge on top of that, so that is included as well. Food, how much you're going to eat? You're going to cook at home? You're going to go out a lot? Where you're going to go out? What kind of food you're going to? That's a tough one to answer. Nice little buggy there, custom made, fake taxi. Anyway, my first few years here, I was averaging about $50 out a month and $250 in groceries. And of course, after I got a girlfriend, that goes up. But at the same time, we're going to the public market more. We're saving that way. We're cooking in large batches and freezing some of it, and just bringing out portions as we need it. Buying bulk if it saves me money sometimes. So it becomes more difficult for me to nail it down how much I'm actually spending on food because of all those factors. There's there are people that tell me they spend their bar bill is more than my food bill. It really depends upon your lifestyle. What I say is advise everybody is know what your budget is. Keep track of your budget and where you're spending, how much you're spending, and analyze it, especially your first several months here, because if you're on a relatively tight budget, it can get away from you real fast. Internet and cell phone service. First, cell phone service. Relatively cheap here, I think. I don't know how it is related to other nations, but relatively cheap. I spend about, for my phone and data on my phone and calling and texting, cost me less than $10 a month. And these phone companies, there are three major ones here. Smart Globe, and what's the other one? I even have their SIM in one of my devices. And anyway, you can sign up for different promotions that give you quite a bit of stuff for relatively inexpensive. As far as internet, there are a number of different companies depending upon where you're located. PLDT, Philippine Long Distance Company is one, and they've got the cell phone service as well. They've got the wired telephone wire type thing, and that's what I have now. I had Sky cable, fiber, internet, and it just was not very reliable, so we switched when that contract was up. We switched back to PLDT wired line, and it is actually more reliable and faster than the fiber I had. So but more and more, even the older buildings, they're putting in fiber. I saw them putting in fiber down the hall. A different company putting in fiber down the hall from me the other day, so I could get fiber if I wanted. And you can pay. I pay $1,200 a month. Gives me about 35 gigabytes per second. Is that it? Somebody will comment if I said that wrong. And that's pretty consistent. Every once in a while, yesterday it went off for 5 minutes or so, but generally I have it most days. But anyway, you can, if you want much faster speed and the fiber optic, you can pay a lot more if you need that higher speed and better service. Health insurance and medical dental. There again, depending on what country you come from, what type of system you're on now. I've got a friend on Medicare in the USA, and he's got one of those Advantage plans, and he goes back and forth between the U.S. As long as you're not out of the U.S. more than like 6 months at a time, some of those Advantage plans will cover you when you're out of the U.S., for instance. And but some of the doctors and hospitals are dropping those Advantage plans for a number of different reasons. Information on the internet about that if you're interested. I have talked to a number of insurance companies here in the Philippines, and a lot of them were just not satisfactory for my situation. And many months ago, I did an interview at Pacific Cross. They used to be part of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and now they're just Pacific Cross. They've got a big building over by Ayala Mall and offices around the Philippines. And I really believe that their premiums were really quite reasonable. And I will put a link to that interview at in the description of this video, so if you're interested in checking that out as well. Dental work, there are more expensive dentists here, and there are less expensive. If they're in the mall paying a high rent, probably going to be a little more expensive than the guys out in other office buildings, possibly. I have a number of videos on medical and dental as well, and I will put a link to that playlist at the end of this video also. Immigration, talking primarily about the tourist visa. And I've been on a work visa for quite some time, number of years, so I think it still averages rounding it off, about $35 a month, and you can extend at 1 month, you can extend 2 months. I think Manila might be allowing the 6 month extension, but I don't think there are any other offices at this time. That can change. That can change, and has changed a number of times over the years. So anyway, just figure that about your average monthly cost. And if you're not near an immigration office, of course, you have the travel expenses, which will lead us into travel expenses. Travel costs. Are you going to buy a vehicle, a scooter, or a four-wheeled vehicle? That's a whole nother video, whole different story there. If you're going to use public transportation, taxis, Grabs, uh, buses, and such, how much are you going to travel? Are you going to spend 100? I can go a lot of places here in Cebu City to a couple of different malls for about 100 pesos, maybe 120, 130, 150 pesos. If I go across town, might be 250 pesos, less than $5. But if you do that 4, 5, 6 times a week, back and forth, that can add up. 30, 40, 50, $70, depends on how much you're going to travel. So understand that expense, keep track of it. Jeepneys are a cheap option. Jeepneys and buses, more and more modern buses in the cities. Just watch your wallet, because I know a number of people who've been pickpocketed because you get cramped. You really get crowded, especially during the rush hours on those vehicles. Now the other side of travel, travel is really cheap here in the Philippines, inexpensive. Flights and ferries and buses and the other types of transportation. So the other side of that is traveling. If you want to travel to another island, if you want to take a vacation, if you get bored in one area, boy, instead of getting upset and bummed out, take a trip across the island you're on or to a different island. When I first came here, I budgeted $100, about 5,000 pesos a month to take a trip someplace. In reality, it turned out to be more like every third month I would take a trip, and it cost me more than that. I'm not really wild about 1 day trips, 1 day, 2 day trips. 3 or 4, 5 day trip is much more enjoyable to me. You have time to relax a little bit or travel around, see some things, rather than these a lot of Filipinos that you might get matched up with might only get 1 day off a week. So you might be taking some of those 1 day trips, which can be a lot of fun as well. All right, we're getting to the one that some of you have been waiting for. Girlfriends. How much do girlfriends cost? Anywhere in the world, there is a cost involved. Money, emotionally, number of different ways. When you have a relationship with friends, girlfriends, what have you. And I've observed a lot, and I've had a lot of discussions with other expats, and a lot of comments and emails from people. Some families, it said, not just here in the Philippines, it said, I think, in Thailand, China, many other Southeast Asian countries as well. When you marry a girl, you're marrying the family. And there can be a lot to that. There are, I'm told by some who marry in the into the, call it upper class, the higher income places, they never ask for help or money or anything else. Middle class or less income, there are a lot of needs here. The girl is probably gonna want a new phone, a better phone, better clothes, gonna want to start eating a little bit differently. That stuff can add up. So just keep that in mind. And then friends. I know a lot of guys, they're regular, even Some guys they're out at the coffee shops or the bars every day drinking with their friends, and that's another expense. If you're going to spend, ties right into entertainment, which I'm not kind of put these together. Entertainment is another one. Are you going to go do a lot of movies? They're movies here. Or are you going to entertainment? I don't think there are much in the way of cultural shows. Big plays that are put on by people, that type of thing. I don't think the Philippines. They've got a lot of fiestas, but not a lot of the cultural, quote unquote, cultural type things that you go and buy tickets to and enjoy. Basketball's real popular here. If you want to go to the local games, that is an option. That probably wouldn't cost you unless you were in the bigger cities with bigger stadiums, I guess. So I'll go back to one of my earlier statements. This is Gaisano Country Mall, by the way. One of my earlier statements: you need to know what your budget is. You need to know how much you're spending, how much you can spend on the various things, and stay in control of your money. Before I ever came here, I watched a video, a number of different videos, and guy had built his girlfriend. In fact, I think he'd gotten married to her, and built her a house and a piggery and a bunch of different things, but he didn't really help out much, and so they were going to get separated, something like that, and somebody was doing a documentary about the whole thing. So and I've met a number of people here and aware of a number of other people. They come here and they think they've got a lot of money. They've sold their house, their properties, their boats and skidoos and everything back in their country, the USA, and they think they're rich, and they're not on a pension yet sometimes. So they don't have that steady income, and they build the girlfriend, the wife, the house. They buy some land in her name. They do a bunch of different things, and it doesn't pan out. They run out of money. They run out of money, and then they're scrambling to, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? Go back to the U.S. or your country to work for half the year, something like that. So that's pretty general guidelines, but what about it when things don't go well for whatever reason? It just doesn't go well, and it happens to a number of people. You don't fit in, it doesn't fit you, what you want, you have bad experience, turns you off. What are you going to do next? Do you have money to do something? You should have some kind of savings account. This IT park here, my videos got kind of mixed up in sequence, kind of. Anyway, when I came here, I was here, I think, a little over 6 months, and I didn't get my Social Security retirement check deposited in my account. I waited over a week. I called them, and they said, "Oh, we sent you a letter." And apparently my daughter just shredded it. And we said, "We overpaid you, so you aren't going to get a check for 6 months." Well, I didn't come here broke. And they said, "Well, you can go to Manila and apply for a lower amount for, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, something like that, if you want, but that could take a couple months." And I said, "Well, I got savings, so I'll just live off my savings in the meantime." And that's what I did. Hopefully you have savings in case your income is disrupted, and it could happen, especially with so many of the things that are going on around the world these days. And you should think just a little bit, at least, about, if this doesn't work out, what are you going to do? In my case, I would have chosen Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, perhaps in that order. Not absolutely positive. I've been to Vietnam. That was an interesting trip. Or go back to the U.S. or Central America, Panama or Ecuador, South America. There are a number of options. Portugal is real popular with some people, but not for me. English being the English language here, the fact that they're very easy to come into the Philippines, stay long term, relatively long term. Um, they're very tolerant, welcoming. The cost of living is much less than it would be for me in the USA. Just so many positive things about the Philippines. And I know a number of people who had a little bit of medical emergencies the first couple of months they were here, and cost them I think 2-3 thousand in each case. Spent a few days in the hospital. Got a friend that's been here for many years, 10 plus years, and he's been in the hospital a couple times. I know a number of uh, expats had pneumonia a few years ago. It's like they all went into the hospital about the same time with pneumonia, it seemed. And the one guy that stayed the longest, I think, over 300,000, and he was in for quite some time. Um, so it's inexpensive here, but at the same time, I was in with a broken shoulder. Many of you know about that. I was in 5 days, and they gave me a senior discount. Not every hospital will do that. They gave me the senior discount, and the PhilHealth is a relatively inexpensive, cost between 7 to 8 thousand pesos. Um, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but relatively inexpensive, and that gave me a discount as well. So think about that. Have your bases covered. Hopefully, new kind of studios only type condominium place over there, I believe. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Look forward to your comments. Safe travels.